Hello, everyone. Today we will be talking about the major scale, understanding its form and its patterns and how we can use them. But let's do a little bit of review. So where we left off was talking a lot about intervals. Intervals had different sizes and qualities. The numbers of letters covered equal to interval size. And it's also important to notice it's always going in one way, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You don't go backwards to determine the size. You always go to the right. Does that make sense? Like you would read it. So if you're talking about an interval from C to E, you'd have C, D, E. That's a third. Meanwhile, distance of register, or how many keys you move, also known as half steps and whole steps, that distance covered is equal to the quality of that interval. So let's apply this more specifically. Seconds and thirds, for example, had major and minor qualities. All right, what do we mean? Well, if we look at a piano, the smallest interval outside of a unison, which we haven't talked about, that would just be the note itself. But the minor second, and that's going just one key away. A great example was going from E to F. That is a minor second. Meanwhile, a major second is bigger. It's 2 keys away, or a whole step, like D to E or C to D, as I have written there. Now, fourths and fifths are bigger yet. So a fourth would be C to F, for example, C, D, E, F, right? And again, you're always going the same direction of the alphabet. But remember, it repeats after G. So let's say you wanted to go from G to C, G, A, B, C. That's another perfect fourth. Oh, but I say perfect. So fourths and fifths have perfect, augmented, or diminished qualities. Let's see what this means specifically. This is an is or isn't thing. A perfect fourth, for example, is 5 steps away. That means starting on E, a perfect fourth would be E, F, G, A, or 5 keys away. See that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This means you have 1 half step and 2 whole steps. Remember, the whole step skips a key, in this case, the black keys. Meanwhile, a perfect fifth is 7 steps away, or 7 keys, also known as a minor third away plus a major third. And you could switch that order depending on where you're at and how you can organize these spaces. But you see that? 7 keys away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, not counting first key. Now, in between, we have a tritone, and that is 6 half steps away, or 3 whole steps, right? And here we see you're starting on B, B, C, D, E, F is a diminished fifth. That is a tritone. What's interesting is that a tritone is the same distance, not the same interval, but the same distance away, 6 keys, if you switched it to an augmented fourth. So an augmented fourth would be going from this F, let me get my pen out, blue. If you went from this F to this B, that's F, G, A, B, that's an augmented fourth, but it would still be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 keys away. Cool? All right, let's move on. Let's talk about a scale. So do you remember this pattern? A, B, C, buddies. D, E, F are buddies right next to each other. G, A, B, C, buddies. D, E, F are buddies. Everyone needs a space except B and C need to be together and E and F, right? Well, this was made from half and whole steps, right? B to C is a minor second, C to D, major, D to E, major, E to F, minor, F to G, major, G to A, major, A. Okay, this is what you did in the assignment. I think that was pretty clear. And if not, talk to me. Now, if you start on a C, what you get is a major scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And there it is on the piano. Let's listen to this. So starting on that same note on the guitar, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Sound familiar? What we see here, though, is a pattern where you have two 4-note patterns of whole, whole, half, also known as tetrachords. The book will talk about this as well. So C to D is a whole, D to E is a whole, and then you have half, right? Whole, whole, half. Those 4 notes are what's called a tetrachord. You can see that there's another tetrachord, whole, whole, half, from G to C. And then those two tetrachords are separated by a whole step. You following me? So in all, you could think whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Or I like to break it down where you've got whole, whole, half, whole step, then another whole, whole, half. So again, to listen to this, you've got C, D, E, F. That's a tetrachord. C to D, whole step. You can see I'm skipping a fret. D to E, skipping another fret. E to F are right next to each other. That is a tetrachord. And then if I go from here up to G, that's 2 frets away, right? That's that whole step. That leads us to the other tetrachord. G, A, B, C. Here, there's a pattern that sounds similar. Those were the 2 tetrachords. And you can hear the major scale. That's the do, re, mi, fa, sol, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, do, a deer, a female deer. If you've ever seen The Sound of Music, maybe it's a generational thing, you might not have, but you never know. Now let's take this form of the major scale and start using it in different ways. We could start it on a different place. For example, if you know the pattern of whole, whole, half, or 2 whole, whole, half tetrachords separated by a whole step, you can then make a major scale. Well, what do I mean by you can make a scale anywhere if you know this form? Well, this is where we're going to start using the black keys. For example, if you started on G on the piano and only used the white keys, you wouldn't be maintaining the form. It wouldn't sound right because the intervals are not correct. Notice D to G is a tetrachord of whole, half, whole instead of whole, whole, half. This is what that would sound like. So we had, now if I started on G instead of that for the major scale, you would get, that does not sound like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Sol, la, ti. Yeah. So how do we fix that? Well, what we'll do is we'll use a black key, in this case, F sharp. And all of a sudden, you get the correct tetrachord. Sol, la, ti, do. That final half step, so that tetrachord is whole, whole, half. Wait, sorry. Starting on D. D to E is a whole, another whole, half. D, E, F sharp, G. Now we have a G major scale. You can see the rest of it was already doing pretty well. G, whole step to A, whole step to B, half step to C. Then you have the other tetrachord, whole step away, which we just did. D, whole step to E, whole step to F sharp, G. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Even though we started in a different spot. That's the C major scale, the G major scale. Kind of makes sense? So the G major scale now is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Let's do this on note flight now. If I start on a G, I hear G, A, B, C, whoops, C, D, E, F, G. That F sounds funny, so I need to add a sharp. So I come up here, see where it says pitch? Da, da. Let's listen. Ah. now we need to talk about accidentals. That was that sharp, that pound sign that I added. Accidentals are signs that raise and lower a note. A sharp, for example, raises a note a half step in pitch. So that F became F sharp, and then we could have a major scale on G. In this case, we see the G sharp takes us to the black key. Flat, meanwhile, lowers a note in pitch. In this case, we see G flat. So before, when we had the G sharp, actually I'd be up here on the guitar. So you have G, there's G sharp. Now we see G flat, lowering the note in pitch. Two accidentals, meanwhile, create a whole step of change. A double sharp raises it 2 frets in pitch, which is also known as what's called an enharmonic spelling. We'll talk about that later. A double flat, meanwhile, lowers it 2 frets instead of raising it, which would be the enharmonic equivalent of F. We'll talk about enharmonic equivalents later, but let's just get what sharps and flats do for now. The natural symbol, meanwhile, neutralizes the accidentals for that note in that measure. So if you had a G sharp and you want to play a G again, you would put a G natural to come back to that note. We'll talk about key signatures later. Don't worry. But anytime you have a sharp or a flat or a double sharp or double flat in a measure, and you want to undo that, you put the natural sign. And that takes it back to the letter. Before we move on, I do want to make a quick note about accidentals. In talking about accidentals, we notice that C sharp and D flat are the same note on the piano, but different on the staff. Also important to note, it does get a little old, sorry, that C sharp does not equal D flat. So if we took a similar situation, let's look at another black key, F sharp, right? That's the same key, not the same note, same key on the piano as G flat, but you could not make a G major scale with G flat instead of F sharp. Why? Well, because the interval size would be incorrect. It would be an augmented first, or an augmented unison, I should say, instead of a minor second. Size does matter in this theoretical context. This will be very important as we begin to write scales beginning on the black keys, also known as beginning on an accidental. Okay, moving on. So let's apply this. In this assignment, what we're going to do is create a C major scale, both clefs, with letter names. Then we'll create a G major scale, labeling the notes and with letter names in both clefs, including the accidental. Really important that you get that correct. Okay. So, if you have F sharp put there on the staff and you say F, it's an F sharp, and you put that little pound sign. And the flat, you can just use a B, a lowercase b. I'll show you in a moment. We're going to do a D major scale where you'll be labeling the notes with letter names in both clefs, plus the 2 accidentals. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then you're also going to do the F major scale, which uses a different accidental. Let's try this out. Okay, so we need to start with C major, right? So let's erase those. We said both clefs. So I'm going to start in the treble clef because that just feels right. It's not, it's just a thing. But you got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Cool. Then you can go down here. C, D, O, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Let's do this. Let's get these letters named. So I'm going to go to text, going here to lyrics, and I'm going to have C, D, all I want. Hold up. Capital C, C. Oh. That's annoying. All right. C. I'm gonna hit space bar, delete that. D, E, F, G, A, B, C. By the way, do you notice how I sing these notes? Try to sing it as much as possible, so it just keeps getting in your ear. It's a good thing to do. Singers, you'll probably do that anyway, but anytime you're doing this stuff, try to play it, or have your piano out. Where is that piano? Aha, keyboard. Have the keyboard out there so you can see it. Okay, so here we are. We have C, and let's get the text. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And in performance text, let's call this C major scale. Got it? That's everything labeled. Cool. Now, the next one I said was G major. Well, we kind of did this already. Let's do it again. G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now, if you come back here, see how going from F down in the bottom hand corner here, going from F to G, that's a whole step. You're skipping a key. So we need to turn that into a half step. Let's get that F sharp in there. Let's listen to see if that's correct. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Fantastic. We did it. Let's label those while we're in the moment. Lyrics. Lyrics. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp is with a pound, G. You need that sharp in there. You got to show it's an accidental. You know it. Okay, now let's do the same thing down here. I'm going to start 2 octaves away. Although you could have started just 1 up here. It's kind of fun. And so we've got G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now, if you played that, it would sound weird when you get to that. That's fun. Yeah, because that is an F natural, right? Let's look at the piano again, or the keyboard as they call it. See that? Going from that F to a G, that's 2 keys. That's too far away. We need just 1 half step to finish that tetrachord. Now let's listen. Got it. Now let's write it out. So we have text, lyrics, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Cool. That is a G major scale. Let's write that out. Performance text, G major scale. All right. What is the next one we need to do? Let's come back to the PowerPoint. D major scale. Now watch what happens here. So let's, I'm going to start on this D. So I have D, D, E, F, G, A. That sounds way different. B, C, D. Listen to that in comparison to the other ones. Does that sound like this? Watch the piano as it does this. If we can. We can't. That doesn't sound right. Let's take a look at the keyboard to see why. All right, so remember we have whole, whole, half, right? Well, if we go from D to E, whole, that looks good. Uh-oh. E to F is a half. That should be a whole. What do we need to do? Add a sharp. Now look what we have. We have D, 2 notes away, E, 2 notes away, and that takes us to the correct tetrachord of G, half step. G, D, whole step, whole step. Whoopsies. keys, and that should be half step to G. Okay, now let's do the same thing here. We have A, B. So that's a whole step. That's cool. Uh-oh, half step. What does that need to be? We've got the whole step going into the last note, but that should be a half. So all you have to do is raise that note. Now we've got whole, starting tetrachord, which is a whole step away from G, A, whole step, D. Does that sound like a major scale? Let's take a look. Ah, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Cool. Let's label it. We got D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Well, that's interesting. That had an F sharp and another sharp. Cool. Now let's write this up here. D, E. Uh-oh, that sounds a little funny. We'll come back to it though. Get the notes written out there. Wait, there's a C sharp below. Ooh, let's listen to this. I kind of like it, to be honest, but it's not a major scale. So that's right. We have to get that. Let's look at the keyboard again. We need to keep this in mind. So there's a physical distance we're looking at. 2 keys away, whole step. That's good. Oops, that should be a whole step. So that's right, because it's whole from D to E. Yep. Now we've got from E to F sharp is another whole. Great. And that leads us to a half step. That's what we want. A, okay, starting in a new tetrachord, full step away. That's 2 keys. Looking good. Whole step, great. Whoops, I saw I had a sharp down there. Yeah, B to C, we know is a half step. We need a whole step. So we just make it C sharp. Let's listen. Oh, don't do that. Great, this is sounding like a D major scale. So I think we're good. Let's put in the lyrics. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp. That's important. D, that's a D major scale. Fantastic. Let's write that out in the performance text. D major scale. Cool. What was the last one? F. Okay, well, let's try this out. Sounds good so far. We got starting on F, G, A, whole step. Ooh. Let's listen into that. You ever heard like the Simpsons song? Okay, keyboard. You've got the Simpsons. This is getting way ahead of it, but that's what's called a Lydian mode. That's when this note is higher than it should be. What we have here is whole step, another whole step into here. Remember F to B, that's a tritone. That's 1, 2, 3 whole steps. That's too far. So we got to make that lower. So we have the correct tetrachord. That should be lower. So we put a flat. And now going from B to C, B flat, JP, B flat to C. C, 2 keys away. See how we got a black key going to C. Okay, great. Now we can finish the rest of the scale. D, E, F, last tetrachord. C to D, whole step, good. Whole step. That's right, E to F is a half. Now we have a major scale. Starting on F, let's listen. Hey, great. Let's do that down here. F, G, A, second. D, E, F, or E, F. What happened to me? C, D, E, F. Is this right? Whoa. That's right. This needs to be flat. Otherwise, you have the incorrect tetrachord size, and you don't have a whole step between the two tetrachords besides. So now we do. So let's do this. Let's write out the text. So let's write out the text. Well, I didn't do it for the first one. I'll come back to it, but it's F, G, A, B flat. You can just use the lowercase b there for the flat. A, excuse me, that's going backwards a little bit. That should be C, C, D, E, F. That's that half step that we need at the end. Great. Same thing here. F. Gotta go to text. That's what happens with that. If you don't hit text, you got F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. That's your F major scale. Cool. All right. I hope that helps.